And now, to me, this is a pretty good example of what one of our modern day ancestors might have looked like. Now, I make no mention of anyone's character nor deeds in this video. Let's just assume this is a random picture off the internet. I thought this was a pretty good illustration. If you notice, he's sporting a mohawk, which is associated with Native Americans. And then notice the feathers and, of course, all the gold chains and other jewelry. Now, based on when this picture was taken, one might conclude that this individual was very aware and made that message obvious. And this, to eliminate a lot of the scrutiny, the parable of the wheat and tares ties most of these biblical stories directly to the Americas. Now, I'm not going to get all biblical on you right now, but the Bible itself documents our heritage and our ancestry. So we got to factor this in. The parable of the wheat and tares. The Bible say the devil gonna sow the tares amongst the wheat until the time of the harvest. And I gather that the harvest is coming soon, and that's why all of this is coming together. Because upon further research, one might conclude that a lot of these things talked about in the Bible has its origins in America. From corn, also known as maize, all the way down to marijuana, which is something that the shamans, medicine men, and chief of the tribes partook in. And I only point that out here because that's Black people's heritage. It was passed down to us through our ancestors. So that explains why they criminalized it, decriminalized it, lying about it, demonized it, and shook down the whole Black community because of it, because it's part of our heritage. But I'm going to definitely be doing a whole video on this topic alone. Check back to the footnotes for more. So back to the wheat and tares. One of the clues that led me to my conclusion on this subject is something that we all know so well. You know, we've all heard it. We had to sing it in school, or at least most of us. But we mostly have some idea about this. And now, you can go and do your own research. I might come back to this. It's a whole rabbit hole of its own, but I just want to point out a few things that I found notable. First of all, a quick precursory search will show you that this song was conceived in 1895 by Kathy Lee Bates. It says right here, America the Beautiful is a patriotic American song. Its lyrics were written by Kathy Lee Bates, and its music was composed by church organist and choir master Samuel A. Ward at Grace Episcopal Church in Newark, New Jersey. The two never met. Bates wrote the words as a poem originally entitled Pike's Peak. It was first published in the 4th of July 1895 edition of the church periodical, The Congregational. At the time, the poem was entitled America. Ward had initially composed the song's melody in 1882 to accompany lyrics to Materna, basis of the hymn, O Mother, Dear Jerusalem. Quite peculiar, though the hymn was not first published until 1892. The combination of Ward's melody and Bates' poem was first entitled America the Beautiful in 1910. The song is one of the most popular of the many American patriotic songs. And now, let's look at some of the lyrics to that song. It goes, Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for, we all know this part, amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plain. Wait, what? For purple mountain majesty? Has anybody ever heard of Purple Mountain? Did you know there was majesties atop the Purple Mountain? Well, we might have to dig into that a little later. Above the fruited plain? So there's a fruited plain in America. Oh, you mean it's all just a metaphor? Okay, moving on. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. It goes on to say, and many of us may have never heard the rest of the song. Oh, beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the years, thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. Wait, we gotta rewind that one again. Thine alabaster cities gleam. There was cities made of alabaster? Wait, what? So there were alabaster cities here. I'm sure we could track those down if that were true. We could track down the truth in that. Moving on. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy hood with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. And it repeats. And so, looking at that with a new set of eyes, I come to realize there might be clues right beneath our nose. So, we gotta pay attention. We got to pay attention. So we might touch back on that a little later, which brings me to the next topic, which might hold clues as to our heritage and our lineage and ancestry, to what our heritage and history actually is, the real Black American history, which is what this series is about. The real Black history, our true heritage, not that fake stuff they talk about in February. So I chose this topic to kind of illustrate and differentiate some of the fact from the fiction. And I see they love this story, but are they telling it how it is? Think about it logistically. Think it all the way through. I don't want to go too deep into it here because that's not what this series is about. It definitely is gonna get a whole series of its own. But just to kind of put us all on the same page, let me read a little bit about what it says here. The Trail of Tears. Now, most of this is stuff that most of us already know, so I'm just briefly skim through. First, it says this article is about the event in Native American history. You see the rest. So note that it says the Trail of Tears was an ethnic cleansing and forced displacement of approximately 60,000, because they have exact numbers, 60,000 people of the 5 civilized tribes between 1830 and 1850 by the United States government. Full stop. Is that an admission of guilt? Does that tell us the crimes that were committed and the people that committed them? I digress. It goes on to say, as part of the Indian removal, members of the Cherokee, Muskogee, Creek, Seminole, Chickasaw, and Choctaw nations were forcibly removed from their ancestral homelands in the southeastern United States to newly designed Indian territory west of the Mississippi River after the passage of the Indian Removal Act in 1830. It says the Cherokee removal in 1838, the last forced removal east of the Mississippi, was brought on by the discovery of gold near Delonia, Georgia in 1828, resulting in the Georgia Gold Rush. They always got to put that out there. The relocated peoples suffered from exposure, disease, and starvation while en route to their newly designed Indian reserve. Thousands died from disease before reaching their destinations or shortly after. Some historians have said that the event constituted a genocide, although the label has been rejected by others and remains a matter of debate. That is hilarious. That's laughable. Separate the fact from fiction. Think about it logistically. How can these two words even be together in the same sentence? Or these two phrases constituted a genocide and remains a matter of debate. Genocide is provable one way or the other. You don't think you was genocided. You know. Genocide is absolutely provable and could not possibly be simply a matter of debate. Because if you simply debating if it was genocide or not, then there lies dozens of other crimes which you have to absolutely be guilty of. So where's the debate? I digress. It goes on to say in the overview, in 1830, a group of Indian nations collectively referred to as the 5 civilized tribes, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Muskogee, and Seminole nations, were living autonomously in what would later be termed the American Deep South. Keep that in mind. The process of cultural transformation from the traditional way of life towards a white American way of life, as proposed by George Washington and Henry Knox, was gaining momentum, especially among the Cherokee and Choctaw. Full-fledged stop right there. We got to eliminate some of the fiction from fact and get down to the real Black American history instead of that fake Black American history. Now, it's basically saying right there that the 5 civilized tribes who were living autonomously in the American Deep South slowly transformed into becoming white American. But what I want to point out that I find very notable, something I find very interesting about this Trail of Tears, the very definition of the word trail tells you that there's proof and evidence somewhere. And we can figure out why they like telling this story. And we could also see that they are not telling the whole story. When you're thinking about it realistically, think it all the way through. Think about it logistically, from a business standpoint, or a governmental standpoint. Or you could even think about it from the perspective of one of the Indians themselves. They telling us that 60,000 of our ancestors were forced to leave the deep south, this area right here, and forced to go out west this way. And now, mind you, the deep south still maintains the largest concentration of Black Americans to this day. So then what are they saying? That all of these people left and then a great number of them came back, and that's why there's so many, African Americans and slaves there today? That's just not adding up. And this is what they lead us to believe. And that's why they like telling this story. But that's not what the evidence supports. Because why is it that the greatest concentration of Black Americans still reside in this region? If they were forced to leave and many of them died on the way and couldn't make it, or how did they make it back? That implies many of them never left. And then they'll say, oh, because when the slaves were emancipated, they didn't have anywhere to go. Many of them had no skills, no family, no money. So they stayed on the plantations and worked for the plantation owner. That doesn't even make sense. Makes for a good story. So since we just making up stories and stuff, this is partly my theory. Because based in fact, I know from experience that many of these places are still owned by Black people. And the paper trail proves that fact. So I think many Black people still reside in these areas because they never left. Many did go out west, and a lot of them did come back. Some of them never made it. But the place that my family is from bears the family name, and it's still on there to this day. So for me, that is proof. They never went anywhere. So that's a little known fact about the Trail of Tears. I can prove that my family never left this area. That implies that there's a kingdom there that never fell. And that's part of my theory. And that's our heritage. That's something to be proud of. That's something that our ancestors passed down to us, even if in code, encrypted, or through clues. The proof is there. If you look below the surface, the proof is there. Or not, but we definitely gonna find out soon enough. And something else that I found remarkable when studying Black history, Black heritage, and I say study because I sought this out in the first place. I didn't have to research it. I searched it out in the first place. So that's why some of these things might sound a little far out to you, but I've been thinking like this for a while now. So when reading up on other topics such as Mansa Musa, you got to look at it with a new set of eyes. Think outside your paradigm. Think outside of what you think you already know. I'm going to just read a little bit about this here. We'll get more into it later, but let's just revisit this story briefly.